Ding dong, merrily on high, in heaven the bells are ringing. Ding dong, merrily the sky is rimmed with angels singing. Gloria,
Good evening, and welcome to the Christmas Eve service here at North Chapel, or North Universalist Chapel Society here in Woodstock, Vermont. It's really good to see you. I know that we hoped for a different outcome from our world these days, but here's the day that we've been given, and it's Christmas time nonetheless. So welcome to this day. Welcome to its beauty, to its wonder, to its mystery. In the morning, the snow is perfect, having drifted down from on high. The dust is still airborne and likely to be that way for hours. The tiniest flakes suspended in the air like atmospheric garland, like the garland that is decorating this room, our sanctuary. A garland of snow draped over the limbs and the branches of the evergreens, lined along the reaches of the bones of the deciduous trees, blanketing at their feet like a holy day. But in the air, the snowflakes linger, hovering, floating without effort, twinkling like those whole star systems floating in the air, frozen galaxies and frozen universes. Comes to rest now on the mangers on the front lawns of our hometown, scenes of Christmas, the Nativity and the miracle birth. The holy day we celebrate at this time. The holy day we anticipate with music and with faith and with ritual, casting even now our dreams for deep connectedness all along the arc of the eastern horizon, for it is coming out of the darkness and into the light. Christmas time is here. And we gather ourselves together and we call our loved ones to our side, for warmth and grace, for peace and comfort, for beauty and possibility. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. There's a sacredness to this. Our winter miracle is born against the odds and against the grain in challenging times, born against the inhospitable ways that we sometimes demonstrate, born to magnify that which gives us grace, born to glorify that which is ever and always the very best in us. The morning star Jesus, the babe is in swaddling clothes, the one for whom we have been waiting, is here, embodied in these hands of tender care, embodied in these hearts of love and longing, envisioned by God, Great Spirit, and creativity herself. Each year we celebrate the miracle, the new light shining out of the darkness into the brightness of the day, at the blessing of every birth. And the rise of sun and moon, our sons and daughters climb the trees of life of this earth, each one knowing some of love, some of God, and some of ancient waters. Ours is just a portion of the truth, and it matters what we do. Our lives are seeds sown of wisdom of the ages and of youth, and we know that on this day we are born anew. Merry Christmas, y'all. Merry Christmas Eve. To all of us who are visiting and resting cautiously with our families, mindful of our health and our well-being, to all of us who are home this year, blessed and blessed by the comfort of our own company, to all within the sphere of this embrace and to those beyond it, to all within the spell of love and laughter, and to those who long for it, Merry Christmas, and welcome to this, our time of celebration and prayer, our service of recognition of the Holy One who has come out from the darkness of the womb and into the beauty of the light of day. What is the spirit of Christmas? A friend of soul once asked this question, and the answer that she heard was cavalier. Love shows up out of nowhere in confusing and joyful ways. That was it. As you may recall, the miracle child was inconvenient. The circumstances of the birth were hardly optimal. For reasons that made sense in that society, there was no room at the inn. Joseph and Mary, heavy with child, were sent into the darkness, out of its depth of isolation, its depth of sorrow, of loneliness. The light of the world was born, the light of the world. This is what happened back then, and this is what happens still today in very real ways for those of us who still live on the edge of residential stability, on the edge of economic stability, on the edge of emotional stability. This is what happens still today for all of us. It is the act of living that leads us into a practical creativity. This is what we experience here and now. It leads us into the art and practice of bringing light out from the depths of darkness, of bringing something out of nothing. How do we do this? How does this happen? How is it possible to bring light out of darkness? Or as the artists and the theologians say, how does one bring dance from stillness, song from silence, light from shadow? What is the art of making miracle with just our hands? These are deep questions, and theologians love to dive into them for days, but they are also practical questions, especially for artists. And in this season of celebration that is centered on the birth of light from darkness, the perspective of the artist is truly moving. Artists provide a bridge between the mundane and the miraculous. It's not always by way of the excellence of their product, incidentally. Most often, in fact, artists provide this bridge by way of the intensity of their process. It's how they get there. In the center of town, here in Woodstock, an artist named Adrian starts from darkness. He stands before a blackboard with an idea in his heart and mind, a lightness in his spirit, and a briefcase filled with chalk. And he draws shades and colors and contours, and he brings his idea to life. Out from the darkness, a miracle begins to emerge. Adrian Tanz has been at this for a while. He is a beautiful and brilliant creative force of good. And around him gather viewers who are captivated by his process because he's drawing and he's creating right here in public. People are captivated whose hearts were opened by the creative process, as if called by the beauty of that which is coming into being. For what are we if not this? A beauty coming into being. If theologians are right and creativity is the nature of the divine, do we not see ourselves reflected in the beauty of artists as they bring their arts to life? I wanted to know, and so I asked him. I asked Adrian about his process, and in this time of Christmas, his answer was a real gift. He would draw with chalk on the chalkboard at the center of town, and many would gather. They would gather in faithful adoration of the miracle that was unfolding within us as well. Speaking of miracles, why don't we sing for a moment? Why don't we gather together and carol? And maybe after that, Adrian can speak for himself.
Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful celebration of light. I'm grateful that we're able to find a way to gather despite the pandemic. My name is Adrian Tanz. Some of you might know me as the guy who draws on the chalkboard in the center of the village. Well, some of you might be saying, so that's who does that. When Leon asked me if I was interested in speaking tonight, I thought about how the chalkboard in town is a fitting metaphor for the time of year, the darkest, when light can be most appreciated Drawing on a big chalkboard is unique. When you, say, make a watercolor painting, the white of the paper is the brightest that anything in the picture can be. Leaving it exposed creates the highlights. It's what is left after you've drawn in the shadows. But drawing on the big, dark surface of a chalkboard is only adding light. And that feels like magic sometimes, to draw light on darkness. Another way the metaphor to this time of year may continue is in the way that it's a time for gift giving. I think of the drawings that happen on the Smiler board as being like little gifts to the community, to the village, to people who see it on their walk or while driving. It's a way of sharing or calling attention to some of my favorite aspects of whatever time of year it happens to be, whether that's the steam billowing from a sugar shack in spring, floating down a river on a lazy summer afternoon, lightning bugs or a drive-in movie on a summer night, maybe canned cranberry sauce on Thanksgiving. But as we all know, the best part about gifts isn't getting them, but giving them. I think I get back so much more in terms of energy and smiles and kind words than I could ever give in a picture. The people in the village and those passing through have continually filled me with gratitude and positivity. The feeling of gratitude and support is more essential to each of us now more than ever during this time of darkness, this historic period of caution against illness. But if there weren't a pandemic, there wouldn't be the Smiler Project. As the threat grew in early 2020 and more people stayed home and the streets became vacant, I felt a desire to help out in some way, but it didn't seem like I had anything to offer. I wasn't a first responder or a medical professional or an essential worker of any kind. The only thing I felt I could do was make images. So I set out to make them as easily seen from a distance as possible while still seeming intimate to our community. A long story short, the History Center was more than happy to loan me the use of the then Woodstock town crier, and the first thing to do was to change the name to the Woodstock Town Smiler, because there had been enough sadness already, and we all knew there'd be more to come. So why not smile when we had the opportunity? And the truth is, I really needed that challenge. I was in a dark place at the time of the Smiler's beginning. It was a bright point in my day, in my week, often the bright point. Where creating something positive out of darkness had all of my attention. The response was heartfelt and it buoyed me, and I am still so grateful to the community for welcoming my small contribution of light in the darkness. And it still works. I still feel jazzed when I finish a drawing and people still seem to respond with joy. By the time this summer rolled around, it had an almost party atmosphere around the board. People stopping, chatting, meeting each other because they happened to both pause on their way to someplace else. That's when they started creating the light and carrying it on to that next place. Maybe with a new friend, maybe just with a smile. During this dark time, I wish you all joy in your effort to bring forth light. Merry Christmas.
Was the servant or
On a cold winter's night. What a beautiful song. Beautiful song to sing on a night as deep as this one is. What gifts, what presents this year wait for us beneath the Christmas tree? Can you imagine what the world would be like if we opened spiritual gifts on Christmas? I'm imagining North Pole elves having crafted these spiritual gifts out of magical Christmas tools, and the reindeer having brought them to our rooftops from across the sky, and Santa having shimmied down the chimney with his sack carrying spiritual gifts of Christmas, gifts of joy and peace, gifts of merriment and mistletoe, gifts of mirth and myrrh, creativity and new birth. Because this is what we do. We may go to the store because it's satisfying to have something to wrap up that's tangible and real, but really what we give to one another at Christmas time is spiritual. We give love and we give joy and we give gratitude to one another. And then Santa and his helpers tuck these spiritual gifts inside other presents, weaves them into socks and builds them into toys and writes them into books and knits them into bulky Christmas sweaters, and then wraps all of these in wrapping paper and places them beneath the tree. Really, what we give to one another is an idea, a beautiful and miraculous idea. There are those in our community who can use a little help making these ideas real and true. There are those in our community who are struggling to make ends meet, and my God, they have such nobility, they have such grace, and they are so brave to make their struggles known. It's hard to do that. But when we do that, when we share our honest experience in life with one another, we are all the better for it. We are a stronger community because we know how to care for one another. Our Christmas offering this year will be split between the Haven in White River Junction and the Minister's Discretionary Fund. Our offering helps to make love and justice real in our community. There will be a link in this service, so look for the link to help us help those in our community who are struggling right now. Let's draw them into the widening circles of our care. A community is not a community unless we know how to rely on one another. So let's bring this into being and make it real, and bring real meaning to the idea of hospitality. Far from the town of Woodstock, in Mexico, an artist named Joan starts from darkness. She stands before a canvas and she lets the good light in. Like all creative artists, she lets the light enter into her heart and she pours it into her soul like birth and spark and fire. You have to build a fire. It doesn't happen on its own. There's a process. When the Christmas miracle happens in Vermont, there's a process. The gathering of kindling, the splitting of wood, the tending of fire, so as to keep the manger warm. The miracle of creativity happens all around the world, and when it happens in Woodstock, there's a process. When it happens in Mexico, there's a process of tending the fire within to keep us warm. Even though it's cold outside, the light within keeps us warm. Joan Columbus keeps us warm with her artwork, her creativity, and the gifts that she offers deepen the meaning of Christmas.
sing we all of the Savior. One He is born, He is born, He is born, He is born. Come let us pray, come let us sing, come let us worship Christ the Lord.
Hello. Leon asked me to say something about creativity, and so I'm going to do my best. And I brought a painting I did that will help me describe my process. The painting is called Abundance and Gratitude. And when I was living in Mexico, I had three orange trees on the property. And in the spring, when everything was bare and dead, as those trees in the back seemed to be, the orange trees would be in full bloom, and they would be, the perfume from them filled the yard. It was extraordinarily wonderful and glorious, and made me so happy. And I felt really grateful to have them there and to honor the earth for giving them to me. And it made me think about how could I paint that connection between us, the earth being the mother, giving us all this wonderful food and fruit and gorgeous land and birds and all the animals and everything that she gives us, and that our real job is to be grateful and to give back. And so I did the best I could to create a painting that said something about that. And so this is the man who was my gardener, bless his heart, and the tree that was on my property making sweet, sweet fragrance all over. And so what I come to understand about my process is, first, I have an idea. And the idea begins to get energy on how in the world, first I have to want to see that idea real. And so I have to start thinking about, well, what materials do I need? What kind of energy do I need? What am I trying to say? How best can I say it? Is it with people? Is it with objects? Is it with the land? Is it what? What is it? All of this goes through my mind, and then I have to figure out what kind of energy and emotion that I am trying to convey, because most of the time I'm trying to convey something. And I'm talking specifically about painting. The process is the same for anything at all that I want to do, but specifically painting, in order for it to get real, I have to really feel it and want to say it. And for example, right now I'm trying to paint a painting about the Scottish Highlands, which I find to be very unforgiving. It's not an inviting land that says, oh, here I am, full of abundance and joy. No, it's a land that says, I dare you. And so how do I paint that? And I started painting the idea, which is only energy. And the next step, I thought, is lava. And I'm stuck. I'm waiting for me to have the kind of energy that could create lava. And I don't have it right now. It's intimidating. And I'm walking around the painting, looking at it, going, yeah. And it's been a year now, waiting for me to feel that kind of energy. I may just manage this year because I'm more energetic than I was. And but that's the way it works with me, is like, what is this that I'm working with? How does it work? What's it built out of? what makes it what it is. All these questions that I ruminate on, and until I feel directed and like I have to go work on it, I don't. I sit on it. And it's like having a baby, I guess. It gestates for ages. And I begin to lose faith in myself. And, well, you're never going to get to that. It's over, there's no energy, blah. And then someday, I've waited long enough, and up it comes. So that's what I have to say.
And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that, while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. And it came to pass, as the angels were gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go even unto Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which the Lord hath made known unto us. And they came with haste, and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger. And when they had seen it, they made known abroad the saying which was told them concerning this child. And all they that heard it wondered at these things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things, and pondered them in her heart.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare Him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills and plains, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. No more let sins and sorrows grow, nor thorns infest the crown. He comes to make His blessings flow, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of His righteous plans, and wonders of His love, and wonders of His love, and wonders of His love.
Captured in the essence of the Christmas story is the birth of light out of darkness. Artists have the experience when they reach within themselves in an effort to discover and to describe the mystery experience of life. Through shape and shade and color and contour, artists reflect back to us moments at a time of truth and beauty, moments at a time of joy and peace. Sanctify this gift. Let it in and help it grow. It feeds your life. It feeds our living. Life breathes more deeply. Fire burns more brightly. Joy is born more beautifully when we are here together. Wider than the screens that hold this Christmas message. Undaunted by the needs of society at this moment. Free from the constraints that is a love that is made real by our honest calling for it. A Christmas love, come forth to hold and to heal us as we grow and learn together. A love that keeps us faithful, keeps us honest, and keeps us thankful. Hold us close within this miracle because Christmas time is here. We close tonight with a poem, Touch Hands, by William Henry Harrison Murray. Ah, friends, dear friends, as years go by and as heads turn gray, how fast the guests do go. Touch hands with those who stay. Strong hands to weak, old hands to young, all around the Christmas board touch hands. The false forget, the foe forgive, for every guest will go and every fire burn low and cabin empty stand. Forget, forgive, for who may say that Christmas Day ever may come to host or guest again? Touch hands. May we look out from within this darkness to find the surefire light of morning, knowing well our inward glow. May we let that inward glow shine out into the darkness. May it overwhelm the night. May we have ourselves a lovely little Christmas. May our hearts be light. Merry Christmas to all and to all. A good night.